So, so the master says that when we are a seeker, we need only to understand. Understanding means knowledge, knowledge means awareness, awareness means experience. So they have shown us the three steps: listening and learning. Listening and learning from a teacher, not from the books. Then we have to reflect and contemplate over the knowledge. So when we contemplate and reflect, we discern. So discernment leads to dispassion, and we have a glimpse of the reality. How easy it is. How simple. Oh, yes, I have understood. It's very simple. I have done it. But how to remove the stress from my life? You see that? So, this is how the mind cheats. And then followed by what happens when you are contemplating and reflecting. Yesterday night I was contemplating and reflecting, and reflection absorbed, turned into a meditative state. Until then, we have to contemplate and reflect. So, what happens? Then you recognize that this is the mindfulness state I'm in. Totally no suffering at all. So, I have been telling you the first 18 verses of this text from the great master, based on the summary of that metaphor. I think you understand that canvas metaphor. Canvas is the original. It is equated to a pure consciousness. Then we have a causal body, and that causal body is the inner self, and it triggers and it gives you some sketch, the subtle body. And from the subtle body, we paint the canvas. We have lot of people, the mountains and the rivers, non-living beings, living beings, and etc. etc. So we are covering that 18 verses. But before that, we should keep in mind that real self means that exists. Exist means that exists forever, at all time, in all locations, with everyone. Do you see that when I go to before my dad, my attitude changes, or mom, when I go to a friend, my attitude and behavior changes? That is not the real self. Are you getting it? Yes. Say yes, even if you don't get it. It's okay. I should change myself. My dad is crazy. Ah, okay. So that is the realization by your mind, not by the real self. This is discernment. My dad may be good and bad. He is good and bad for him, not for me. So you have found the real self. You have a glimpse of it. It can be here and now. Oh, don't pay attention to the beard. Pay attention to what I'm saying. So, what is mindfulness? It is the state of the being. The mind stops searching outside for peace and happiness, love and wisdom, desire for freedom. There is an intense desire in the mind for freedom when we work on the mind. When we work on the mind, we are a seeker. So, what happens? The mind is wandering only when it is seeking freedom outside. Then only it is jumping on relations, on people, on Thanksgiving. Have you all celebrated Thanksgiving? Yes. Were you happy on the Thanksgiving? Yes. Is the peace continues? Where the happiness is gone? It has gone. It has gone. So what exactly we are searching? We are searching that real self. But where it is already here and now. My bank account is empty. To fill that, I have to search something outside. I have to work hard and get the money. But the real self is already here and now. I need not to make any effort. It is already here and now. But I'm not realizing. Why I'm not realizing? Ignorance is there. Wrong notion is there. So why the wrong notion is there? Because the mind has overpowered me. That is known as the reflected consciousness. That is known as the subtle body. That is what is explained in this metaphor. What is the metaphor? It is simple. Comparison, simile, to understand a concept or a reality. So we have many metaphors in science, so we have a metaphor here. So the metaphor helps us to understand unfamiliar situations or a concept meaningfully. So when we understand those concepts, it changes my mind through the reflection. She has undergone through a roller coaster of emotions. It's a metaphor. So now we have understood what it means. Our emotions can't take a ride on a roller coaster. So the metaphor simply means the person going through a lot of different moods. That is what this metaphor explains. Metaphor. So now we are covering a couple of verses. So first thing that we have understood, canvas is one, but when the painted canvas is there, it has become many. There are many people. There are mountains and rivers on the canvas, the painted, one consciousness. Now I'm comparing. I believe you remember the metaphors are identical, but they are not same. I think I covered that part, but just pay attention. David consciousness, Stephen consciousness, Sam consciousness, Randy consciousness, Terry consciousness, Girish consciousness. Are they different? Oh, that's what I see. That's what I see. But why I see and understand that each one has a different consciousness? Find out. Here and now. Because of the name and the form. Because of the age. Because of the gender. Because of the color. So I compare and I see the difference because of the world outside. First I see the name and the form and age and the gender, then I see your consciousness is different than mine. Are you getting it? Say yes. So one consciousness, but fact is that there is one real self, there is one consciousness. You cannot say many consciousnesses. Can you say many consciousnesses? Sam consciousness is different than Brandy. Brandy consciousness is different than the Terry. No. But still the mind goes with it. And when the mind goes with it, we see many. Fact is only one. We see many people on the painted canvas, but the fact is the canvas is one. One canvas, many people. One consciousness. One consciousness. seems to be divided into many. To discover oneself, we have to recognize the two. You see, what that means? That means that I say, for example, Stephen. So my mind reflects on the Stephen's personality, attitude, behavior, response, reaction. So I have already divided into two, but I don't recognize only one consciousness behind the Stephen is also working there. Can I make it? Did I make you understand? That, this is, we have to recognize the two I, the one Stephen, number one I is coming from the mind. But behind that painted canvas, there is painting, there is only one canvas. Behind the Stephen, there is only one consciousness. Behind the Terry, there is only one consciousness. Behind the Brandy, there is only one consciousness. So we forget to recognize this too. Then I can say my dad is crazy, my mom is this, and you are crazy, and I'm good. It all comes from the mind. It has nothing to do with the pure consciousness. It has nothing to do with pure consciousness. With that metaphor, what we are doing a discernment. What is that discernment? We see there is a reflected consciousness and there is a pure consciousness. There is a pure canvas and we see the world outside. We recognize different people. That is coming from the reflected consciousness. Why we say it is the reflected consciousness? Because the mind borrows the consciousness from the real self and then it enlivens. Mind gives the same consciousness to the sense organ, then it enlivens. Sense organ perceives here is a Terry. So the moment I say here is a Terry and here I am, the mind has already divided both of us into two. Fact is that behind there is only one consciousness. So how that master makes us understand through that metaphor of a canvas. Again, I'm repeating, the canvas is pure, then it is starched, casual level, third level, no, casual level. So third level is the subtle level, that is the mind. So on the mind, that consciousness is reflected. On the mirror, you have a sun rays reflected, and I say, for example, the sun is, I open the door, there I put the mirror, and the sun light is not going inside my house, so I put the mirror, and the sun rays are reflected inside my home. So I'm talking of that reflected light that is present in the home. It is not directly coming from the sun. Mind is that reflected consciousness. Got it? Yes, say yes. So you got it. So now from there, so that is why in the canvas we see it is only one, but appears many. Many appears in the world, but behind there is only one. We have only to understand, behind there is only one. My mind looks at you, your mind looks at me. What is this mind? This is reflected consciousness, where the world appears now. Pay attention where this entire world appears. It appears in the mind. It does not appear on the pure consciousness. Where the painting appears, it appears on the virtual world of canvas with the different colors and the sketching. Are you getting it? Different words in the sketching. My mind looks at you, your mind looks at me. Can I recognize it is only a reflected consciousness, but the pure consciousness is present behind? I should recognize the two. One consciousness is a mental consciousness. It is a conscious mind. That conscious mind becomes an individual. Show me where you are as an individual. Do you recognize that individual in deep sleep? Mind is unmanifest. So mind is unmanifest, so you do not recognize you as an individual. So when I say I am individual, I am stressed, I am happy, I celebrated Thanksgiving, where is the peace left? Are you still having the happiness? It is gone. It comes from the reflected consciousness. It comes from the mind. So the entire world appears on the mind, on the reflected consciousness. The real self has nothing to do with it. So where we do the mistake, where we commit the error in our daily living, there is an error in perception. We claim that pure consciousness is what the reflected consciousness is. Did I make a statement right? Is it going into your head? There is an error in perception that pure consciousness, or over the pure consciousness, the mind superimposes its individuality based on my shape and the size and the status in the world outside. Is there a way that I should separate completely physically the pure consciousness from the reflected consciousness? If I separate my mind from the real self, then there is a way I can recognize them. Can you separate them physically? Can you separate the wave from the water physically? You cannot separate them. But can I separate in my mind through the knowledge? Yes, that is what the discernment is. So here and now, while listening, the moment you see the world outside of people, of living things and non-living things, of stress, of anxiety, they all live on the mind. They do not live on the pure consciousness. I have to separate in my head. Through the knowledge, by discernment, leads to dispassion. We see that separation, and the moment we see, we are aware of that separation, we are in the state of mindfulness. We are in the state of mindfulness. We are in the state of mindfulness. So the master points out one more thing. Pay attention, what exists is real. And what appears to exist is unreal. What is unreal? This is constantly changing. What is unreal? It is false. That appears to exist but do not. How to bring them together? What I said, that I should recognize the reflected consciousness and the pure consciousness in my head, in my understanding, inside. The moment I understand it, I recognize the mind is the reflected consciousness as unreal. The moment I recognize it is unreal, now I see that what is unreal? I have lot of stress. I have lot of money. I am the most beautiful, or God cursed me. They all belongs to the mind, not to us. They all leave you. Why? Because they do not exist. Does the wave is true? Answer is no. It is all water. What exists? Check it here and now. Recognize is real or pure consciousness. The rest is unreal. That is the journey of understanding through this metaphor. I have told you that first 18 verses gives a summary, and after that in 200 verses, it gives such a detailed explanation. But to tell you, you will be surprised that I told you that Upanishads are the main text. So if I see that this master is explaining only one verse from the Upanishad in more than 250 verses. It is not the original or main text, but he has used the main text. Everyone uses the same. Their explanations are, come back. The moment I see Sam, am I aware of the two consciousness in me and also what he speaks, what he says to me? One consciousness is a reflected consciousness that is unreal, other is the pure consciousness. I have to recognize the two to discover the one pure consciousness. One is reflected, that recognizes the body, the mind, the thoughts, and the feeling, and all the sensations. Behind that, there is a pure consciousness. And I have told you, I think, I'm conscious of you, I'm conscious of the computer, I'm conscious of the my speaking to you, I'm conscious of you are listening to me, hence I'm consciousness. That is one. And second, coming from the mind. What is coming from the mind? I'm conscious of you. I'm conscious of the monitor. Both are simultaneous. Both are simultaneous, not sequential, one after the other. No. So can I recognize the two I in me? One I, creation of the mind. One eye is ever shining. One eye never leaves. Body leaves, even that eye never leaves. Mind sleeps, real eye never leaves. Otherwise, I'll be declared as dead. Consciousness is there. That is the beauty. Out of the two, out of the two consciousness, one is reflected, one is pure. Out of the two, who says I am rich, I am poor, I am stressed, I am in anxiety? Who says? And who doesn't say anything? Who lives into the same purified state? What is real self? That never changes. Are you getting it? We are going deeper and deeper. So when I say I am in stress, I am rich, I am poor, this is my gender, this is my age, all comes from the reflected consciousness, the mind. But that I am not. They are the different attributes created by the mind. They are the different attributes created by the mind. Are you getting it? I'm going step by step. So first we understood that I should recognize one is the reflected consciousness, other is the pure consciousness. Good. So the reflected consciousness works through the different attributes. What are those attributes? Today in the morning I am in stress, and in the evening I am very happy. I celebrated Thanksgiving. That real self is not affected. It says I'm already in peace, I'm already in that state. Because it never changes. Are you getting it? Many attributes. The greater many attributes you have the greater delusion. Here is my business card. It is written CEO, or what are the other designations? COO. We write, a lot of. That is coming from the reflected consciousness. I'm husband, I'm wife. Coming from the reflected consciousness. So you see that more attributes you have, it's okay, it's good to have those attributes, it's good to have those skills and abilities, but to claim that it is me causes the delusion. It starts the comparison. So when it starts the comparison, then comparison creates the impurities of the mind. That is what our masters are talking about. So what is to be done? We have to be a seeker. We have to follow the discernment and dispassion in our head, in our mind. Why? To purify the mind. Why to purify the mind? The pure mind is simple, free from attributes. Are you paying attention? Is pure mind is free from attributes. You have certain skills. Use the skill when it is required, but remain free from it. Pure mind is simple, free from the attributes. No tag is attached. That is the pure mind. That pure mind recognizes the real self in the mind itself. And that leads to the meditation. We talk of two consciousnesses to help us understand. One is a reflected consciousness. Reflected consciousness is the mind. It is the conscious mind. The conscious mind declares that I am an individual. I have these skills, or I have lot of stress. But the other consciousness, that is the real self, that remains behind. That has nothing to do. That is why we say mindfulness is nothing but an effortless, natural. It demands only understanding. Our mistake, our error in perception, that we do not recognize the two I working together. One thing is very clear, they cannot be separated. One I is created by the reflected consciousness, that is the mind. The mind is full of attributes, good, bad, high, low, stress, all the activities, and the other I enjoys. Last thing, very important last thing is that in one of the Upanishads. I'm going to the original text. Who gave that master offered another metaphor. It says, in one tree, two birds are there. One bird is jumping from one branch to the other, constantly working and jumping. Other bird remains silent, enjoying the presence. That tree is the world outside. One bird that is jumping is the reflected consciousness, and the second bird is just sitting, enjoying a witness consciousness. That is the real self. That is what is happening all the time with us. The moment our reflected consciousness recognizes that I am in stress, I'm conscious of the stress, isn't it? I'm conscious of the stress. So one bird is constantly jumping. How to get rid of that stress? The other bird, that is pure consciousness, away from the statement and the feeling and experience that I am in the stress. That bird is enjoying the presence. That is what the real self is. So when I read this, one tree, one bird is gone. So it is happening. One bird that is jumping is my mind, is a reflected consciousness. But I claim that I am the mind. So when I am the mind, I am the reflected consciousness, and the mind has created the world. In that world, I have a stress. I just celebrated Thanksgiving and forgot it. All the pleasures have gone. Last thing the master says that no, we continue to celebrate these events to express peace and happiness, not to think that I can drive peace and happiness by celebrating an event. That event may be a Thanksgiving, birthday, or anything. So you are in the state of mindfulness all the time. Close your eyes. Eyes are closed. Reflected consciousness. My goodness. Yes, it is reflected consciousness. Who says close your eyes, and who closed his or her eyes? It is the field of reflected consciousness. Just you have to recognize it is the bird that is jumping. It is the bird that is jumping. My friends, if you recognize the bird, one bird, pure consciousness, other is simply jumping. What did that means by jumping? I said close your eyes. The mind jumped. Very good. Let it jump. So your identification is that you are the other one, not this one. That's another good metaphor to work on. So when I say, so again, recognize the two. So when you recognize the two, what is unreal will dissolve by itself. People ask me how to control the thoughts. Recognize. The thoughts will dissolve. Let us go in a very simple way. Pay attention. Two, recognize the two, and one will dissolve by itself. That is what I have been saying. Three steps are very common. common in all practice, so-called practices, but here we are not doing a practice. Awareness of the neck joint. When you are aware of the neck joint, that very awareness means you are conscious of the neck joint. So there is only consciousness that manifests in sensation, comfort, and steadiness. Many people they start stitching, moving their head and the neck. They start stretching, as if the stretching results into sensation, comfort, and steadiness. To consciousness, says, so to say. There are not two consciousnesses, but we recognize. And in that moment of recognition, reflected consciousness dissolves. That results into an experience of sensation, comfort, and steadiness in the neck joint. Okay, no, but sensation, comfort, and steadiness is also an experience of the reflected consciousness. Or that also dissolves. Then what happens? There's space and emptiness. See that. That is what this master, through a metaphor, explains the tree world, which includes, our physical body, causal body, subtle body. So that creates the bird which is constantly jumping, and the bird that is jumping on the tree is I'm not saying. And the other bird is never moves. Why it doesn't move? Because it has not to move. But why it has not to move? Because it is of the nature of peace and happiness. It is the nature of love. You see how I use the being comfortable as a passive step, but fact is that it is a non-practice. Through your awareness, you go deeper. Let us see the shoulder joints. Who recognizes reflected consciousness? Okay. Sensation, comfort, and steadiness. Who recognizes the reflected consciousness? But that consciousness is present. One bird is jumping. That bird jumping is the mind. So mind jumps to the shoulder joints. That bird says, I experience sensation, comfort, and steadiness. But where this experience is living, it is living in the same reflected kind. That bird is jumping. So it says, I'm okay now. What is after that? There is only an emptiness in the space. Just a pure awareness is there. All activities have stopped. So that I identifies with the bird that is simply present sitting. Pure consciousness. It is not that after a few minutes, an hour, you go into meditation. It means you are doing a practice. You're covering a distance in the time. No. Pick up another, the hip joint. A recognition of the two. One bird sitting, pure consciousness. Other is jumping. Which one is jumping? Reflected consciousness. What is that? Mind. Okay. So, So that reflected conscious mind says, you see, two I experience sensation, comfort, and steadiness. But this I is not the real I, it is only the mind. Unless that is resolved, the false I is resolved, we cannot find the real I. How can we have two I at the same time? So you see the metaphor, the two birds. How? Now see the trick, how this mind causes the impurity. Yeah. When I say become aware of the body, I'm saying again, become aware of the body. I will show you the error in perception. Become aware of the body. Reflected consciousness. Painted. Conscious mind. Conscious mind says, this is my body and others' body are not mine. The error in perception, and that is ignorance. That is what I wanted to say. Body is a matter. So wherever there is a matter, either it is me or it is not me. And the moment we recognize I'm not the matter, so I'm not the body. So that bird which is jumping, that is the mind, resolves into, if I say dissolves or merges or resolves into, the bird that is sitting. What is that sitting? That is the real self. No, that bird jumps again. I have a lot of thoughts. Okay, I have a lot of thoughts means what? I have a lot of thoughts, or conscious mind has a lot of thoughts. The moment you recognize that is not you, reflected consciousness merges again. The jumping bird merges again to the. That much is understood. That needs to be understood. Nothing else. That is the power of so-called mindfulness or meditation. Second, the so-called step, that is also not a step, being carefree, because you are not doing anything. You are just aware. Awareness, pure awareness. Bird number one, that is simply sitting on the tree, and that tree is the world. The world includes my body, my mind, my intellect, my ego, my relations, my past impressions, my memories. That is the tree. Second bird, reflected consciousness. I, or say mind, or I can say conscious mind. Being carefree, you already know. I explain it that carefree means free from all the cares of the mind. how the mind cares by uninvited, unwelcome thoughts. I don't need those thoughts at this time, but still they come. Again, matter of attention and awareness. So when they come, then what I say, I have lot of thoughts. I have? What is this I? Who is this I? Just out of the blue, the conscious mind created a sense of I-ness. Bird is jumping. Then the jumping bird superimposes, covers, wheels the other bird that is sitting quietly. One way to understand. Other way to understand. Oh, conscious mind claims I have lot of thoughts. I have. Okay. So that I is different from the conscious mind. That is why. But the thoughts can only be present in the mind, not into the I. See that. Then why I claim that I have lot of thoughts? So you're reflecting on this. The moment you reflect, what happens? Thought is there. You reflected. I-ness is lost with reference to the mind. What is left? The real I, your real self. When 24 by 7, all the time, in all locations. Oh, you see, the moment, why we say it is effortless and natural? Because if I say do this and do that, who listens? The mind. Who does it? Mind. With the help of the body and the senses. So it is all the reflected consciousness is doing their practice. So when you put the reflected consciousness into the practice of any meditation and mindfulness, how it can get rid of the false I? It is the false I. It created the false I. But for that, we have to be the highest level of a seeker. We should have the commitment, intensity. Otherwise, we will claim, oh, I know, and why you have a stress. Any movement, any change, any sensation, any thought, any feeling. Yes, awareness is there. Who becomes aware? False I. False I, what is that false I? Reflected consciousness. Where is this reflected consciousness? Conscious mind. So we only recognize this number one I is the jumping bird. You recognize the two. One is sitting. In a recognition we have a word that is cognition. Cognition is awareness. Awareness is knowledge. So I recognize that. The moment I recognize, when I recognize the two I, the one that I does not exist, falls apart. So now I'm not attached to any thought or the body or the feeling or the sensation or the images or the running or then what happens? What exists will remain. And I recognize that. Again, I'm careful using the word I recognize. Here is the, you can say, the climax of mindfulness. What I said, I recognize. Is this I is reflected consciousness? No. Then what it is? It is the real self. What do you mean? The real self recognizes the self? Yes. That is why we say it is self-evident. That is why we say the real self is self-luminous. To recognize the real self, I don't need the mind. To recognize the sun, we don't need the moon. So when that understanding is absorbed, I recognize. Now that I is the real self. To recognize the sun, we don't need a candle light. Mind is still very smaller than the candlelight. It does not have a light at all. Do I need to speak? No. For a seeker. Even if I speak, does it disturb your state? Yes. You are the jumping bird. No. You're already settled there. noise in the mind, the noise in the world outside, the movement or no movement in the body, any experiences, they all belong to the reflected consciousness, conscious mind that claims falsely this is I am. The moment we recognize that two does not remain, the two consciousnesses, due to the error in perception, dissolves. That is what the mindfulness is. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Bring your mind on the right hand. Bring your mind on the left hand. Take your time. We're not in a hurry. And bring your both the palms over the eyes. Open the eyes inside the palms. Know your experiences. Bring the hands down. We'll share our experiences so that it helps us to progress, and it also helps me to design the next lesson. So, how are you, Stephen and Sam? S2.
Good, thank you. During the lesson, what resonated with me was the understanding that every thought, everything I see, everything I hear is reflective consciousness.
Yes.
And it's false.
It is.
So therefore, when I recognize that, it would put me to understand how to be part of the pure consciousness. So when you said close your eyes, the first thing that popped in my head, I go, reflective consciousness.
Yes.
I go, but I'll do it. And so I close my eyes. But no disrespect, but everything else that you said after that, my mind, or my pure consciousness said, that's reflective consciousness, you're not doing it. And I stayed in this space of peace and happiness throughout until you said to raise your hands up, and I said immediately, reflective consciousness, but I'm doing it because this is over and I need to speak to this. So it was good.
Beautiful narration and beautiful experience from 24/7. If we recognize so-called the two consciousnesses, I'm using the word so-called, You recognize it as the reflected consciousness. The moment you have a stress and you recognize, oh, reflected consciousness, you cannot remain in stress. How can you remain in stress? That is so powerful. Wonderful experience and your sharing. How are you, Sam?
Good. Just a blank sheet.
Blank sheet.
Blank sheet.
So who is speaking? If it is a blank sheet, then who is speaking? Yes, recognize instantly. One thing I think I discussed about it, this reflected consciousness and the pure consciousness cannot, they will always remain together. Why? Reflected consciousness for transaction. You cannot destroy it. I'm speaking, I cannot destroy it. Otherwise, how can I speak? We'll work on this, contemplate on this. How are you, David and Jerry?
Thank you. I really enjoyed the discussion ahead of time. The analogy of the two birds and the tree really resonated well with me. And Stephen, thank you for your words there, because that's a perfect description of how I was feeling, and I just couldn't sort of articulate it. So it's like this default mechanism now of saying that's the reflective consciousness, ignore it kind of thing. So
beautiful. Beautiful. How are you, Jerry?
Very good, thank you. It takes me back, the lesson takes me back to the paramedic that's well trained, and he knows how to stop the blood and how to get them breathing, and you know what to do, and he doesn't have to stop and open his book and wonder what to do. And when our mind is well trained and knows the difference between the permanent and the impermanent, then it's rooted in consciousness, bottled consciousness, as you say. Then the actions change, the expressions change, the words change, and attitude changes. Right. I love the lesson. Thank you.
Yeah. It's a definitely it's a good, many such similes reveals in your mind, whatever your profession is. So your mind picks up, oh, this is it. This is it. This is it. And one more part, our attitude and behavior change. The moment you are in stress and the next moment you recognize it belongs to the reflected consciousness. You cannot remain in stress. No, don't tell me I live in stress. So it means you are living in a false notion. How are you, Terry? Terry is so focused.
That was a very good lesson for me also. I wanted to let the jumping bird go.
Good.
But he wouldn't go. But then you just said they're always together.
But
They're always simultaneous.
No, but who has to let the jumping bird go? It is the same jumping bird.
The one, yeah.
You see, it is the same jumping bird. So it means you have created a duality in the same reflected consciousness, same reflected mind.
Yeah, I wanted to just go.
Yeah.
But if it never goes, it's always there. Then I guess it's just how you respond to it.
Yes. Only one thing there, that jumping bird is identified as I, is lost. That is the error in perception. Otherwise, that jumping bird has to be with the silent bird. How can I do the transaction in the world? Huh? How can you talk? How can you share the experiences? How can you listen to me? Not very subtle to pick up. So you see, that is why I used to say, my friends, that we should all become a Hollywood actors. So that real I appears in the reflected consciousness, talking to you as a teacher. The role of a teacher is gone. Why to worry? Why to create that teacher is greater than the seeker? Why to worry? There is no worries. Just you acted your part and finished. So that is why our masters have introduced that. You see that the world is just play and a fun. Don't be so serious in the world. Take the world lightly. Take your body lightly. Yes. Yes, now I see the smile on the face. Brandy, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good morning. Sometimes the jumping bird is a really annoying bird, like a jay or something like that, you know?
Who says
Which
annoying
mine
bird? Who says annoying bird?
Yeah.
It is the same jumping bird.
So I got there today.
No, you're right. Now continue.
And I forgot what I was going to say. But you get the idea. Like the nice thing is the J is not the J anymore. So
Yes, Brandy, yes. Yes, Kate joined in the middle anyhow. How are you, Kate?
Yes, I was outside and I'd lost track of time, and all of a sudden we have a storm coming, so I was doing all my leaves. I'm ready. It was a beautiful lesson. Sorry, I was a little late. What I noticed is when we were coming out, I the reflective noticed the she's.
Who is coming out?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, who is coming out and who is going in?
Right. And that I noticed that profoundly today. Like that.
Yes.
It's the disconnect.
Yes, this is what happens. You see that, that Upanishad, which gives the reference of these two birds, long back, written almost about 4,000 years ago. Look at their similes in the metaphor. So, the last point, just for the sake of information, there are about 108 Upanishads, and these Upanishads means that masters have extracted the verses and the mantras and the knowledge from the voluminous text of Vedas. They contain more than 500,000 verses. And they categorized into a different category. So every verse demands lot of explanation. So later on these masters, like the one we are learning from it every Saturday. So he picked up selected verse, and single verse he explained it into 300 and 400 verses to make the things clear. So when one student of mine told me, "Oh, I have read all the Upanishads," I said, "Very good. Then why you are with me?" So when I explained to him, and then he said, "Oh, that is why." So he has been my student almost for a couple of months now. So thank you very much. We will meet again.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Namaste.
Namaste.